Hi, everyone. My name is Lynette Davis with LynetteDavis.com. And I am so very delighted to introduce you all to my the final guest of this year's Be the Change blog series. And even though she is the final guest, surely never that being she's the final person on this list of awesome sauce. So I am going to welcome you, Miss Autumn Tompkins.
Hi, Lynette. Thank you for having me.
I am so delighted that you are here. So, everyone, before we jump in, I just want to let you all know who Autumn is to me, just in case you don't know. Autumn is my awesome and amazing copywriter for Team A&D Media, which is my virtual assistant business. If some of you didn't know that that's what I did. And she's also my copy editor. So all the things that you see that are well written and grammatically correct, that's Autumn, because it's definitely not me. um, and even though Autumn's probably going to talk about that, where the be the change part comes in is something so much more awesome and inspiring and cool. And I'm going to let her dig into that as we go into this interview. So we're going to just jump right in. Sound good to you, Autumn?
Sounds good to me.
Awesome. So, Autumn, what does be the change mean to you?
Be the change means to me to stand up and have a voice, to be heard, and to impact other people's lives.
Awesome. Awesome. I like how you just kind of made that like nice and simple, very clear, very, very concise, to the point, but impactful. And like I told everybody, we know that you are a copywriter, but there is so much more going on with what you are doing. So, can you tell me about the work that you are up to right now?
Well, as a copywriter, I do a lot of different projects. I take on a lot of different things. And I'm all about being authentic and true to who you are, because through that, it's what shapes your voice. It's how you stand out. It's how you be the change.
Awesome. And what about the other work that you're up to? I just recently noticed that you had an article published on Elephant Journal, I believe it was, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. And I think that is super awesome because they are a huge platform. And I think it's probably not the easiest thing to get on there. And you wrote a very specific article about advocacy. Can you tell us about that and what that article was about and why you're writing that article?
Yes. Um, as some people may know, I suffer from a neurological disorder called muscular dystrophy, and it confines me to a wheelchair. So, first of all, I have to tell you, I've never thought of myself as an advocate before. Um, there was one situation in particular that sparked, it kind of ignited my passion to help other people who can't or won't advocate for themselves. Um, and it's all about the challenges we face in society as people with physical limitations. There's certain things that able-bodied people take for granted, but that also impact the lives of disabled people, and it influences how we're perceived in society.
Mm-hmm. And so this article was about clarifying some of those perceptions. Could you kind of, you know, kind of give us a one-on-one introduction to, about some of these misconceptions or false perceptions that we are as I consider myself an able-bodied person, although my eyes kind of suck, but but I am able-bodied, and and guys, I'm saying my eyes kind of suck because I wear contacts. If anybody's like, "What do you mean your eyes kind of?" So back to the point. Can you tell us about that? What are some of those things, and how are you, working as an advocate? Because that's what I see you as, to clear up some of those things.
Well, writing this article has helped me help people notice the little things that I've noticed, um, particularly where the biggest misconception for me and my situation is that, like, designated spots for disabled people, that somehow makes us feel more included in society. And while I'm not saying that it doesn't, what I am saying is it makes it difficult when you can't participate as an equal, where, like in a movie theater, you have to sit in a certain section. I mean, otherwise somebody might trip over your wheelchair, or you might not be able to see the screen, um, where you have to park, where if they only have one entrance with a ramp, where you have to go in, or in particular, what even motivated me to write the article was a couple of weeks ago, I went out to a restaurant, and I hadn't been there before, but I went in and I waited to be seated, and I was taken into the back when there were spots available in the front. And I didn't think anything of it until I was talking with one of my friends, and I said, why didn't we sit up front? We should have sat up front. It's not, you don't hear as much noise from the kitchen, things like that. And the waitress overheard me and said, I didn't want anybody to trip over your wheelchair. And it kind of took me aback for a minute, because it's really not fair.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, definitely. So, in writing this article, you are trying to bring to awareness, um, even if it's just you as a person, because sometimes I feel like a little bad about telling somebody they represent a whole thing, because I don't like that. I don't like that either. Where you have to, like, yeah, I represent, everybody that
Yeah.
looks anything or sounds, or
Mm-hmm.
like, no, no, no.
Yep.
um, Unfortunately, though, a lot of people do that. So in your case, it was more like you were sharing your story in particular, to get the conversation going, or to add to it, or to well, you tell me.
That was exactly it. To add to a conversation about privilege and discrimination. And it's really, I mean, they really get upset sometimes when you throw that D word around like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there are a lot of disabled people who don't or won't share my opinion simply because they're afraid of the backlash they might face. They are uncomfortable. For example, in a handicapped parking situation, even though I use a wheelchair, I go out of my way not to park in handicapped spots, because I know there are other people that need them more. People who've had 4 heart attacks but can still walk. And unfortunately, these people either won't say anything because America generalizes them as appearing to be lazy, or they just don't think they don't think it's a big deal.
Right, right. You're right. I've seen so many stories in social media where somebody that looks perfectly able-bodied will park in a handicap parking spot and people will send them really nasty notes, not knowing they just came out of the hospital because, you know, they, especially for women, because I believe heart disease is like our number one killer.
Yeah.
So, and, you know, I actually knew a woman who literally was in the hospital all the time because she had heart disease, and she received that kind of discrimination because she didn't look like what somebody's idea of a handicapped person should look like. So
It's
yeah.
exactly, it's all about perception. And, well, I believe that everyone can do as they please. I do believe that someone has to say something about the way disabled people get treated. And again, whether that's a visual disability or an invisible disability, everyone needs to play nice. But nobody, I run into a lot of disabled people, especially their wheelchair users. And underneath of it all, I think they're ashamed and they won't say anything. They won't do anything. And anymore, it's really not sit well with me. And I have to speak up.
Awesome. Awesome. I think that's really courageous of you, Autumn. Honestly, I really do. And I think this is a great example of be the change. You know, it's something that's very personal because sometimes people go, you know, I don't know which cause or, you know, whatever. Sometimes you don't have to dig that deep. It can be something that really sits very close to home. And just getting out there and telling your story and sharing your opinion, regardless of whether or not people agree with it, you know, standing up for what you believe and what you see is definitely is being the change. So I totally applaud you for your effort. So
Thank
let
you.
me let me ask you this. Because I know that because you're involved with this, and it doesn't even have to necessarily relate to the things, the advocacy that you're working on now, because I know that you're also involved with other nonprofit organizations, especially with animals, I believe.
Yeah.
Can you let us know how can business owners and these nonprofits or not-for-profit kind of organizational leaders, how can we work together and truly be the change in this world, truly create real impact in this world?
Well, I really think that banding together for one cause, uh, it's more each organization playing a part. What are their strengths and how can they impact this cause? And if each business plays their part that plays to their strengths, then they could impact a cause. They could make change. But again, it doesn't even have to be on a large scale. I mean, just even putting on an awareness program that the community could benefit from, little things that businesses could come together to do to help raise awareness for one cause.
Awesome. I think that's a great idea, you know, and I do wonder, you know, what can an awareness program look like? And I know I'm asking you extensive questions, but I would, if you, I know you're a writer, so and
Yeah,
most writers have big dreams and big thoughts and visions. I know that because I'm also a writer.
yeah.
So could you like kind of throw out a sample of what that kind of looks like?
Absolutely. I know when I was in college, well, almost a decade ago, uh, I used to speak at freshman orientation to raise awareness for the disabled students on campus. And again, if businesses were to hold some sort of orientation for their employees, and I don't want to call it an inclusion orientation, or even if they held a awareness convention uh, in their community, it could be something that just raises awareness, just something to enlighten the community as to the needs of others and how to, like, I know the simple thing for me. There are door stops or access buttons on doors that automatically open them. And while I feel those are wonderful, raising awareness through a community activity might allow someone to hold the door open more often rather than having them go out of their way because the buttons aren't usually located right by the doors. So you've kind of got to dodge in and out of traffic and in and out of people's pathways and push that button. But and then hope you don't hit anybody when the door opens. uh, but it might just make people stop and think, okay, what can I do if I see a disabled person? What can I do to help them for half a second? Or maybe even anybody in the community, because a lot of disabilities are invisible.
Very true. And that's such a small, simple act, but it's also an act of compassion.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think that's awesome. So, we are winding down on time because I had to pry. I had you on here and I was like, I have to pry. And I had to do that, guys, because I've worked with Autumn for, well, we've been working with each other for a while. So,
Absolutely.
so I was like, yeah, I'm going to get it out.
Absolutely.
So, before we go, can you give us one actionable piece of advice for those who are watching and they're thinking about starting a nonprofit or taking up a cause, and they're busy freelancers like you and I,
Yeah.
and getting all of this advice about how we need to monetize this and monetize that, but they still have it in their heart to want to give back just for the sake of giving back.
You know, there's a number of things they could volunteer. Again, that doesn't have to be anything extensive. It doesn't have to be anything, you don't have to give monetarily, but even if you just go to an organization where there are disadvantaged people, sometimes just talking with them. Sometimes people just need someone to listen. That's how you could really give back. Small, I want to call it little ways that you could influence someone. Because sometimes all they need is an ear. Sometimes they don't have anyone to listen to them. And that can be the biggest way to give back to your community is just by listening. But if you want to really start a nonprofit or really get involved with a cause, the best piece of advice I can give you is to have a clear goal. If you have a clear goal, everything else will fall into place. But if you're just kind of like, oh, I want to do this or I want to help out or I want to do that, it's like, no, you've got to have a clear goal. I want to teach 10 people how to read by the end of the year. Or I want to help 25 inmates get their GED. Anyway, it's just about having a clear goal.
I love that. I love that. And that was so great and concrete. And sometimes we don't think about that.
It
Sometimes
brings
we don't think about
clarity.
that. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And, you know, kind of to bring home your point, you know, I did that myself when I thought about Be the Change. When I said, okay, I'm going to do this series. This is going to be my contribution by sharing this information, exposing people to others. I have 4 Sundays in this month. I'm going to have 4 interviews, and I was determined to make sure that worked. You know, that's the goal. Like, that's the goal. We're going to do this. We're going to promote it this many times into these many platforms so that this can happen.
Awesome.
So that was awesome. Autumn, I am so very appreciative that you were able to make it on to do this interview despite the huge technical difficulties that we had in the beginning. Guys, we had so much, and despite all that, Autumn didn't give up on me, and she still came on. So I am truly, truly grateful.
I wouldn't miss it.
Awesome. You rock, lady.
Thank you.
And everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. Until the next time, peace.